Today's episode is for all wives who have ever wanted to just throw their husbands out of the door. They just seem too harsh and never seem to understand our feelings. But hold on there, because today's book will teach us why men are just think so differently from us and how we can use them in the correct way to become the happiest wives on earth. And for men out there, wondering why you're walking on eggshells with your wives all the time? Make sure you listen in as well. All right, let's dive in. Welcome to A Book with Bubble Tea. With your host, Mira He. Here, I share takeaways from East Asian books on parenting, startups, and self-growth. Seeking insights beyond the typical English shelf? Want to be a better parent and achieve more in life? You are in the right place. Grab your bubble tea and let's dive in. Hi everyone, welcome to the new episode of A Book with Bubble Tea. This is Mira. How's everyone doing? Today we're going to have a fun episode because we're going to talk about a book titled Manual on How to Use Your Husband Correctly. So today's episode is dedicated to all the wives struggling with your husbands. I mean, I sometimes do wonder, why am I even here in this marriage, right? This creature gives me so much pain and hardship. Why am I still here? But just hold on there. And today's episode will teach us how we can deal with them and how we can become the happiest wives in the world. And men, make sure you listen in as well. You will reveal a lot of truth about yourself and how you can do better too. All right, so today's book is Manual on How to Use Your Husband, and it's written by Ihoko Kurokawa. As some of you might remember, we actually reviewed another book by the same author, and that book was about son, how do we use our son, use quote unquote, how do we cope and deal with our son in the correct way. That is our first episode ever for this podcast. And the feedback we got was, so positive. A lot of people, they said it was so funny, especially when they heard about, my son, touching his bum to see whether there's still poo there or not. I mean, to all the mom, I think we will just blow up. But then to boys, that just seems to be, something natural to them. Anyhow, it was a fun episode. So if you haven't listened to it, definitely go and check out, but just bear in mind of the recording quality. It wasn't great, but the episode was so much fun. And today we're going to review another book by the same author, and this time we're talking about our husband. Right. And the title in Japanese is called Oto no Torisetsu. But what made me laugh so hard was the subtitle. It says, taught by a neuroscientist on having a 70-year-old of good marriage before you consider your husband as a bowl trash and throw him out. Make sure you read this book. When I read this subtitle, I just couldn't stop laughing. Wives, come on, let's be honest, okay? No matter how much we love our husbands, there were always those moments we just wonder, why I even married this guy, seriously. Wouldn't I just be better off without him? I have to admit, I probably thought about it more than once. But, when I looked at my husband's paycheck, I canceled the idea. I have to say, my husband, to be honest, made me cry so many times. And every time is because of the way he talks to me. When I used to work for other companies, I remember once I came home complaining about my manager saying she never did any part of her work. And we, as her team members, always had to tidy up her shit. But instead of being fired, she actually got a pay rise. How unfair it was. I was actually expecting for some comfort from my husband. Or at least, giving some words of confirmation that, the situation was really unfair and, I shouldn't be treated this way. But instead, my husband just said, what's wrong with that? your manager actually did her job, right? Her job is to get you guys to do things, not for her to do things. So you guys are just being stupid. I was like, what? How did he dare to say that? No comfort, no appreciation, but words like slapping my face. At that moment, I probably hated my husband more than that manager, to be honest. If there was the form of divorce, I probably would file it immediately. But paycheck. And another thing about my husband that often just made me want to storm out of the door and said, I'll never come back, is when he's so short of patience when I try to talk to him. If I don't make my objective clear about the conversation and then make myself clear in the first 3 seconds, he would immediately shut me up, either with what? Yeah? Or come on, what do you want to say? And then with him rolling his eyeballs. I'm sure I'm not alone here. So if you're like me, facing any of the struggles above with your husbands, or if you have any of the experiences with the below scenarios, like your husband never seemed to be able to assist you with any housework, or it seems your husband suffer from this selective deafness, like he hears everyone else except you, or he never seems to understand your feelings, or he never does anything romantic to you, or, you doubt whether your husband still loves you or not, or his presence alone just irritates you, then you definitely need today's episode before you chuck this disappointing husband away. Because according to the author, the next one won't be any better either. So this book is meant to teach all wives how we can use our husbands correctly. Then you might find out all these unbearable, incomprehensible, uncompassionate, puzzling, harsh, stupid behaviors are all his ways of shouting out to you, I love you. I do this because I care about you. I want you to survive. And we, as wives, we're girlfriends. We'll also find out why sometimes we are actually the cause to our own misery, not our husbands or our partners. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about the first section. The so-called husband is just a human with this kind of brain, to explore the differences between male and female brains. And the second part is, did we actually wrongly accuse our husband? Examining the harshness of our female brains. And the third part is the 9 tips from the book on how to use our husbands correctly to make ourselves the happiest wives. And before we go on and talk about it, I just want to briefly mention about the author. The author, Ihoko Kurokawa, is a highly recognized neuroscientist in Japan. She focused on analyzing how, pronunciation of words trigger different sensations in our brains and how the sensations differed by gender and age. So she knows a lot about brains and the differences between male brains and female brains. She's also a highly accomplished author in Japan, publishing a lot of books. So that's it, a bit of a background of the author. And then we are ready to dive in more about the book. Here we go. First, the so-called husband is a person who has this kind of brain, exploring the differences between male and female brains. First, we have to know that nothing involved in our brains does not serve a positive purpose. So even if it's a behavior that seems undesirable, it must still have something positive about it for our brains to preserve it. Like gossips. Gossip might not be something desirable in many societies, but it actually serves a critical function for us to relearn what happened to others and to prevent making the same mistakes by talking it out. So if your husband behaves in a way that ticks you off so much, perhaps there is still a positive purpose to it. Maybe it increases his odds of survivability. But obviously, that's only if you want your husband to survive in the first place. Second thing is that though we talk about male and female brains and the differences in our behaviors derive from our brains, it doesn't mean we cannot learn or unlearn those behaviors. So, in fact, in the book, the author advocates for all mothers to speak to our sons in a way that is rich in emotional expressions and help them to be more acquainted with feelings and emotions so the sons actually know the right behaviors to get along with females later on in their life. So to be more familiar with how female brains work and how females' behaviors. So behaviors can definitely change if we put in the effort, or you will see like in different culture as well, right? Like an Italian man who is like, ciao, bella all the time will definitely be a lot more expressionate than a Japanese man who are so quiet and then don't speak up their mind or speak up their emotions at all. So there is a cultural dynamic to it as well. And these external things can definitely help us and shape our behaviors in a way that are different from our natural instinct or natural tendency. But what this book talk about is all these natural tendencies that we are born with due to the differences in how male brain works and how female brain works. It doesn't mean that males cannot do what females do or females cannot do what males do, but it's just our natural tendency. What is our default setting in our brain when we face a situation? What is the most intuitive way for us to react to it? So you can think about it as if it's like a natural default setting of our brain. Obviously, we can learn to do it differently, but these default settings are there. And, it's sometimes hard to change because that's just our natural tendency. And sometimes it goes beyond our awareness. Apparently, these differences in our natural tendencies of reacting to things can be observed as early as to 2 to 3 months old infants. According to an article on Stanford Medicine magazine, the title of the article is Two Minds, The Cognitive Differences Between Men and Women, published in 2017, summarizes the differences in the cognitive behaviors derived from our male and female brains. I'll include this article in the show note. If you're interested, you can check it out. But essentially, boys and girls, infants at 2 to 3 months already show differences in their spatial visualization skills. Boys like to experiment differences in distance from young age. And when they grow up, they tend to have superior visual spatial skills and can visualize things in 2D, 3D, and, rotate in space and angle and are more drawn to things. Whereas girls, on the other hand, like faces and learn how to speak faster and remain more oriented to faces even when they grow up. In a study of 34 rhesus monkeys, scientists actually found out that male strongly prefer toys with wheels, like cars, over plush toys, whereas females actually like the plush toys more, like the stuffed toys. And really, it's not hard to think about the differences result from different sexes in the animal world. Like tigers, male tigers after mating will just wander off, whereas female tigers will stay behind to look after and protect the cubs. No one teaches them how. They just know that's what they need to do naturally, and male and female adopt very different behaviors. Apparently, our brains are under the effect of sex hormones and sex chromosomes. And since we are conceived, sex hormones and sex chromosomes are already, working to influence our brain's development, to guide us to do the right thing in the future, to increase our odds of survival and make sure we produce better offsprings and make sure our offsprings also survive. So it's really not that surprising if you think about it, that females and males have different natural born tendencies to do, feel, think differently. But what does it mean in the human world? So for human beings, men, naturally stronger, right, are the natural hunters who feed the families, whereas women are tasked with bearing offspring, bringing them up, ensuring their survival, and ensuring they are of the best quality. To cope with these two distinctive roles, our brains develop different survival strategies too. So men's default setting is to look for things far away, things that move because they need to hunt. And women tend to look at things in front of them, be more sensitive to others' feelings because they need to look after their kids and show compassion to other people to get help and support in raising kids, which increases their and their kids' survivability. Understanding what males and females are tasked to do will make it much easier to understand why we behave so differently. So naturally, for men's brain, is a lot more goal-oriented and problem-solving oriented. Because they're hunters, right? They need to focus on the goal and solve the problems that arise. So whenever anything happens, including his wife saying, "I want to talk to you," it will immediately trigger their hunter's brain. Any problem to solve here? What do I need to do now? But for women's brain, our brain focus more on compassion and are more feelings oriented. Women usually stay back with other women to look after kids. So women who show compassion to other women and gain support from others are more likely to survive. So, we say things like, "Oh no, are you okay? Do you need help?" are crucial to our survival, but it's so foreign to men. And men, when they are quiet, it actually de-stresses them because, hey, solving problem needs some quietness to think. Whereas women, we need to talk to de-stress because it's a way for us to learn and relearn, to experience what happened. So in the future, we don't make the same mistakes and we can also gain some inspiration from the things that have just happened, right? So men and women actually treat talking very differently. And men, when they are stressed or tense, they shut down this language detection functionality. Men will enter a space of visual concentration and focus to prepare for what may happen next. But for women, we never shut down the language detection functionality. Can you imagine if women shut down the language detection functionality and the babies are crying because the babies are in danger? What would happen to women? So you see how different men and women's brains functions. And no wonder we have so many miscommunications in marriage. And now you see why our husbands can never give us any comfort. And why when we share our problems with them, they're so eager to jump in to offer solutions. Because that's what they're built, right? The hunter, the problem-solving mode. And now you also see why, whenever we talk to them, we sound like Charlie Brown's teacher. Like, rah, 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 rah. They just never seem to be able to hear what we are saying. And when we ask them what we just said, they will just reply like, "Huh? Were you talking to me?" Oh man, I'm sure it takes off so many wives. But hey, according to the author, apparently that's because your man entered this visual concentration zone. He is focusing on you to make sure you are safe. That's why his language detection functionality is shut down. So because he loves you so much, he wants to make sure you are safe so he cannot hear you. Okay. And the natural job of being a hunter also means his love is expressed in his routine work of going out to hunt for his family and bring the food back. When he brings back food regularly, that's his way of saying, "I love you. I want to make sure you guys have enough food to survive." And in the modern day, it's bringing back his salary regularly. But to be honest, to women who are tasked with all kinds of chores when the husbands are not home and the chaos of child caring, they see husbands bringing food home or bringing salary home as doing his work. This is just his routine work. This is his responsibility to feed the family. And only when husbands do something out of the routine and surprise the wives that the wives feel, "Oh, my husband loves me so much. He's doing this for me." But according to the author, we just have different expectations of how love is expressed. Men express their love in the routine work. So when the wife asks husband to do something and husbands actually do it, that is a way for them to say, "Hey, I love you. I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm doing it." But for women, a lot of time it's like, "I'm already so busy. Why should I still tell you what to do? Can you not even see I need some help here?" You see the differences here? These two brains think so differently. And once we understand that our husbands actually don't have the bad intention, it's just the way their brains are wired. Perhaps we can cut them some slack and think, all right, after all, husbands are just creatures with this kind of brain spec. And this is what I'm going to do to cope with him better. Now let's move on to the second part. Did we actually wrongly accuse our husbands? examining the harshness of our female brains too. In addition to the differences in male and female brains, which lead husbands and wives to act and think differently, we, as wives, also need to vindicate men a bit, because often the fault lies not with the husband, but with us. Why is that? The author says it's because women change drastically after having kids. She suggests that the primary task of female is to produce offspring, right? Therefore, if a woman is with a man for too long without having children, she will naturally want to move on, exploring other possibilities with other men to produce offspring. Even after having children, when the kids start walking, the same tendencies push women to explore other possibilities with different men to increase genetic diversity. But this doesn't mean women will have affairs or cheat on their husbands, but rather women develop a way to manifest this eagerness by growing dissatisfaction with their husbands right in front of them. So what used to be cute suddenly becomes irritating. For example, the tousled hair after waking up used to be so cute, but now it just looks total mess. The same guy doing the same thing can actually trigger completely different feelings in a woman's mind. Plus, after having children, husbands simply become resource provider to ensure the kids survive. So husbands get sidelined, and everything becomes about looking after the kids. If you can't help, you are in the way. And the gentle wife is a thing of the past. Now the husband has to face a ticking time bomb of a shrew. If you think being motherly is a woman's nature, think again. Because being motherly is reserved exclusively for her offspring, not for her husband. Imagine the shock husbands must feel seeing the before and after of their wives with and without kids. And women, if we can't understand our husbands, like why they're talking to us like that, just look at how we talk to our kids. Do you see the similarity? Like a husband giving us commands and then never listen to our emotions or feelings and compassion, always eager to jump into solutions. That is exactly what we do to our kids. Why is that? Because we see our offspring as our responsibilities. That's why we naturally want to prevent them from having any dangers or encountering problems. So our tendency to shout at our kids is because we love them so much. We want to make sure they're doing the right thing. Similarly, husbands' tendencies to shout at their wives or to offer solutions immediately is because they care about their wives so much. They want to ensure their wives are safe and away from danger. All right, now moving on to the last part. So what are the tips we can learn from this book? Here it comes, the 9 tips from the book on how to use our husbands correctly to make ourselves the happiest wives. First, accept all the shortcomings of their respect, which includes inability to feel our feelings, eagerness to solve our problems, failure to hear what we are telling them, lacking compassion. Just let it be. Accept who he is. Second, standardize how you want them to respond to you in words and how you would like them to celebrate any special occasions. So be clear and standardize it. For example, if you just want to complain about something and then you don't need your husband to offer a solution, you can tell them straight up and say, hey, I just want to complain right now. Can you just hear me out what I have to say? But I don't want you to give me any solutions or any comments. Usually they will be like, okay, sure, no problem. Standardize it, how you would like them to respond to you. Or you can tell them, on every single anniversary, we will go to a 5-star hotel to have our nice meal, okay? I don't need you to do anything else. Just go and reserve a restaurant at a 5-star hotel. Got it? I'm sure your husband will be like, yeah, got it. Because men's brain like standard. They like routine. To them, that's a breath of freshness. They know what to do now. So standardize how you want them to respond to you and how you would like them to celebrate every single occasion with you. Like I told my husband, like, can you please buy me some skincare products from airport once? And then from that point onward, every single time he travels, he will always buy me skincare products, even if I told him, I don't need it anymore. I only have one face. How many skincare products do I need? But he will be like, but you haven't got this brand. Let me get it for you. Oh, how sweet. Third, if you want to talk to your husband, treat him like a robot and activate his talking mode correctly. And this is what you need to do with a husband robot. You need to first enter his vision zone and call his name to activate him. Second, wait for 2 to 3 seconds for him to load up his system. Third, talk slowly at first. Then when his system gains momentum, you can resume your usual speed. 4. Structure your sentences in a way he can understand. Unless you tell him otherwise beforehand, structure your sentences in his default way. Conclusion first, numbers first, and be clear about what you want him to do. Like, I don't have a conclusion yet, but I just want you to hear me out. Got it? These are the ways to talk to our husbands. Treat them like a talking robot. Then you will be fine. Fourth, don't try to read between the lines with your husband because usually there's nothing there. So, as wives, sometimes we get a bit sensitive and we overthink sometimes. Like if the husband says, there are only 2 dishes, the wives might think, I am so busy today and I managed to squeeze out some time to cook. Are you saying 2 dishes are not good enough for you? Am I not doing well as a wife? Are you complaining about me? But the author says men usually don't think that much. When they say there are only 2 dishes, that means that is all he's getting for food. Once you confirm to him, he'll just go and get his bowl of rice and then start to eat with those 2 dishes. There is nothing more to what he says. It's just exactly what he says. So wives, let's not overthink or overanalyze what our husband said. Just take it as it is from the face value. Fifth, reignite love for your husbands by assigning chores and dividing tasks clearly. Again, men love routine and clear responsibilities. But we have to admit, household is usually not his domain to know what to do. So if you can assign him a specific task and say, from now on, this is your responsibility, you'll be surprised how excellent your husband can do. The author shared a story of a friend. She said, usually, it's the wife who goes out for grocery shopping, right? So she has to prepare, making sure there is enough stock, inventory for coffee, tea, milk, toilet paper, etc. So about a dozen items. So wife usually just manage it from her brain, from her memory of what it's being needed at home. But from time to time, she will still miss out some items. And suddenly they will either run out of ketchup or having too much toilet paper. So the friend actually said to her husband and said, from now on, you are tasked to manage our inventory. And surprisingly, the husband organized the kitchen shelves neatly and even labeled each drawers, managing everything efficiently. And he even introduced an app to just manage the inventory. So whenever the wife goes on shopping, she can just pull out the app and see what items are lacking, what items she needs to top up, and then tick it off whenever she bought them. The wife was so surprised, and obviously pleasantly surprised. So the author suggests, wives, don't give up on your husbands. A lot of time, they don't help you with their housework. It's because they don't know what you want them to do. But if you can assign a specific task to them, you will be surprised how well they excel. Sixth, don't be a perfect wife or a superwoman. Show your vulnerability to your husband. As adaptable women, even though we are capable of doing all things, remember, vulnerability brings intimacy. It won't hurt to let our husbands know there are chores we really need them to help us with. We can say, oh, I just cannot figure this out. Or, oh, it hurts. Could you please help me with this thing? If we can strategically show our vulnerability and playfully seeking attention, it can really enhance our communication and connections with our husbands. because it subtly conveys to the husband that my wife really needs me. Our vulnerability gives our husbands room to fill the gaps for us and validates his importance to us and enhances our intimacy. Point 7. Men fear losing, rejection, and losing face. Words are our weapons as wives to get our men more fired up to do things for us. Remember, wives, our words are our weapons. As long as you don't overuse it, of course. If you can tell your husbands from time to time, "Oh, thank you so much, dear, for helping me. You are so wonderful. How could I live without you?" I am sure your husband will be so happy to hear this from you, and he will want to do more for you. The author shares actually a funny story. Even as a scientist and a successful entrepreneur, she always asks her husband to change light bulbs. It's just something she tasks her husband to do. If her husband only returns at 9, she would wait. So the husband used to tell the wife, like, "What would you do if I weren't here?" And the wife would say, "Oh, that's why you need to live a long life." But once they entered this LED era, she realized they haven't changed a light bulb for the past 20 years. So now it's a question of whether the LED light will give out first or the husband. Point number 8. Don't seek approval or encouragement from your husbands if you want to try something new. If you want to try something new, just do it. Because husbands naturally worry about their wives. We are their responsibilities. So it's natural for them to veto any of our ideas of things we want to do. Sometimes you want to seek his encouragement because you also feel a bit anxious. You want him to tell you, like, "Honey, don't worry, everything will be okay. Just do it. Don't be afraid." But in reality, our husbands are likely to just say no. Not because he doesn't want you to grow or try new things, but because he worries about you. Remember, it's their tendency to protect us. So in this case, if it's not a big deal, then just do it. And if you really want to discuss it with him, make sure you only bring up the positive points, not the negative. And I found this is so true because, I have been driving for the past 10 years. I can drive confidently anywhere. However, every time when we relocate to a new place, my husband would always say, like, "The traffic here is too bad. Don't drive. If you need, just take a taxi." Like he really didn't want me to drive when we moved to Riyadh. I mean, I have to admit, the traffic in Riyadh is really crazy. It's like the craziest I have ever seen. But I still got to drive, right? I got kids. I need to fetch them. I need to collect them. I need to drop them. So without asking my husband, I just did it. And after I demonstrated I could do it once, my husband kind of just let me be. He would just say, like, "Oh, whatever. You do your thing." And before, I feel, it's kind of sad when I hear my husband say, "I give up on you, I just let you be." But now I'm just like, hoo-hoo! Because I know, like, it just means he's relaxed. He knows I can do it and he won't stop me from doing it. So another tip for all the wives, right? If you want to do something new, just do it, right? Your husband will naturally veto you out. That is also natural for him. But, just go and try and do it, as long as it's not a big deal. Point number 9, last but not least, all wives should have the right expectation. There is no need for spouses to always agree, and we should not judge our love or measure our love by whether we and our husbands agree on something or not, because this is just not going to happen. So these are the 9 points I got from the book that I believe will really, really help us as wives to have a good marriage, a good relationships with our husbands. All right, now finally, here are my thoughts. This book made me laugh so much when I was reading it. It narrates the hardships that all wives, or even husbands, have gone through in such a funny way that it's really hard not to feel resonated with. That's exactly what happened between me and my husband a lot of the times. Before, I really thought these conflicts were just between me and my husband, like unique to us because of his personality, because of his characters. But this book has made me realize there are some fundamental differences between male and female brains. Sometimes it's just impossible to agree on things, but, that's okay. As long as we respect each other's specs, like how different we are built, and understand how he expresses his love and read his love language correctly, I believe we can continue to deepen our relationship together. Perhaps I need surprises or romantic acts from time to time, but I should not dismiss his love towards me by working to support the family or continuously buying me skincare products, even if I clearly have an overstock and only one face. But that's his love language, right? His love is expressed in every single days of his act of services. And we as wives, or me, really should not overreact to his words, because he often just doesn't mean anything else apart from the words that he spit out. I particularly love this quote that the author uses to conclude her book. It goes, "Instead of seeing the husband as an extension of a romantic relationship, view him as an integral element of the family. Transform the glow of romance into the bond among family members. The irreplaceable of family will eventually morph into your love for your husband. It's neither sweet nor dazzling, but simply sincere and profound. This is the true face of marriage, a time only spouses can share. Don't let the marriage you worked hard to attain slowly decay by chasing after things that don't exist. Don't measure love by gentle and considerate words or actively noticing and helping you out. The key is to find a way to live well. All marriages are undoubtedly supported by the wisdom and effort of women. As I wrote in the first chapter, the inherent differences between men and women are trying to separate couples in this world. You are not the only one who sometimes feel utterly annoyed with your husband. But let's all strive together to become happy." So before you give up on your husband and are just ready to chuck him away, give him and yourself another chance. By understanding how his brain is wired and have the sincere desire to build an intimate relationship together, your marriage will possess a special shine of its own. And remember, the next man will not necessarily be better. Alright, so this is today's episode on the book with bubble tea. If you enjoy it, if you would like to have more insights from great East Asian books, please follow us. And now we also have a YouTube channel. You can easily subscribe there. Okay, that's it for today. And let's continue drink our bubble tea, learn and grow together. See you next time. Bye.